Okay guys, so today we've got another double act. I don't think they're as great as our double act, to be honest, Nathan, but we've got Nathan we've got Nathan and Kay.
It's not a mirror there.
We've got Nathan and Kay here from ANB Sensors. So welcome guys, welcome to our podcast.
Thanks for coming along.
That's right, thanks for having us.
That's absolutely fine. So if we just, did you want to say something?
No.
You look like you're going to say some grand. Good start. Good.
40 minutes you said this would take.
No.
So first question we've got for you today, guys, is how did you get into your pH sensor? Maybe give us a little intro to your pH sensor and ANB and what you do.
Yeah, can do. So pH sensors, actually, I've been doing pH sensors throughout my career. Even when I was doing my PhD at university, we were developing pH sensors and calibration-free systems. We then looked at it for oil and gas applications through when we worked at Schlumberger. And then the Wendy Schmidt Ocean Alpha X Prize came along. And they said, can you build a pH sensor? Well, the mantra was to get a pH sensor that you could easily deploy in the ocean, because obviously ocean acidification, ocean monitoring is extremely important. So we built a prototype in 6 weeks.
Oh wow.
And it got into the ocean, got through various stages of the Wendy Schmidt, and we got to the final, at which point it got to 3,000 metre deployment, which is, considering we only tested to the depth of their bath,
it's not
before it got
insignificant.
deployed that far. It was quite an exciting challenge. And yeah, the unique aspect, the calibration-free side of it, is something that we wanted to make sure that we push forward, especially as we want to roll it out to any end user possible.
Certainly makes it very much easier to use compared to something you have to send off to calibrate once a year, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was one of the things that why we did so well in the X Prize, is because they could see those USPs.
Yes.
I mean, obviously we weren't quite as honed as competitors who have been making pH sensors for a number of years, but we did quite well. Got the runner-up spot, and then that went into forming ANB Sensors. And
fantastic.
And really where we've got going on ocean acidification, ocean monitoring, and looking to where we can take the sensor next. So it's been an exciting journey. Also, pH is the number one chemical measurement, and that's why it's interesting to me throughout my career.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say, to just develop a sensor in 6 weeks and have it come runner up in this big competition is just great.
Yeah, it's a fantastic achievement.
Yeah, it was crazy times. It was, even the day of the first trials when we were in California, we were soldering at 4 a.m. in the morning in the hotel.
Wow.
the final bits of the sensor.
Kind of evocative of for F1 fans out there, they'll know about the Brawn GP season 2009, where they lost an engine a few weeks before because Honda pulled out and they put a Merc engine in instead with wooden spacers, and it was the fastest car on the grid by a long distance. So
it's true.
It's quite a nice story.
The last minute ones seem to do well.
Yeah, they do.
What a comparison to make.
It sprung to mind.
Yeah, we're not quite as sleek as an F1 team yet.
At least you've got a wild story about what you've done in a hotel room at 4 a.m.
Yeah, that is
This is
true.
true.
That is true. Smoke coming up the soldering iron.
So it's quite an interesting story to get started, but has there been a specific career highlight either with ANB or beforehand? I know obviously PhD yourself, Kay, are you PhD as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
both of you. So has there been something that stood out for you as a particularly nice moment, either with ANB or something before?
I think for me, there's been lots of highlights, but actually now our Christmas party just gone with all the guys in our lab that we've employed by getting this far. It's just lovely to see the table growing every Christmas because the group's growing. So that always, I think, is a highlight for me.
Oh, fantastic.
Shows how far you've come and stuff.
Yeah.
It's really lovely to hear you say something more social rather than something to do with it's to do with work, but rather that it being something focused on the business. It's nice to see that a highlight for you is something that's for the company well-being kind of thing. That's really nice. Yeah. I like that.
Or the alcohol at the Christmas party.
That does play a part.
And yourself, Nathan?
I think that's a very good one, actually. I think the last 5 years, my career's changed. Obviously, their careers have changed. and we've learned so much in the last 5 years compared to the previous 10. That's sort of the highlight. It's just to take on a whole different skill set that I didn't have before. I didn't think I could do, and I don't know if I still can do, but we seem to muddle along, don't we?
Mhm.
So obviously I should say meeting Kay and doing their first experiments is my highlight, really. But yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, seeing the company grow for sure is great to see,
Yeah.
and being able to be heavily involved with that and leading that with Kay, I think it's something I really enjoy.
Excellent.
Shows how far like you've come, and also that development in the company itself. And yeah, like I think even since we've been talking to you, like the company seems further on, and that's what, been a year or so now.
It's been a year already.
Yeah.
Right.
Has it been a year?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I remember
Yeah.
Ryan telling us about yourselves and saying, oh, there's no pH sensor, because obviously we work with a few different companies for oceanographic, and there's nothing particularly like focused on pH. So it was quite nice because obviously pH is, you said, very important. Number one,
It's a number of chemical measurement.
chemical measurement.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to see someone, you know, from this side of the pond, because we work with so many folk from the Americas and in Europe. It's nice to see something closer to home doing so well.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think maybe COVID makes the timescales stretch a bit differently, don't they?
Time's just gone so quickly the last 2 years, and you think, oh, yeah, something was about 2 years ago. It's actually now 5. And
Yeah.
Where's that time gone?
That's scary. Yeah, we're coming up to our 5-year lease on the building that we first started. And we didn't think we'd get to 3 years, let alone 5.
So,
But no, it's true.
sometimes I still feel like it's 2020. I'm like, oh no, we're 2 years on from that point now. It's just
Yeah.
crazy. But so we touched on a bit on how the company came about with is it the X Prize?
Yeah.
Yeah, the X Prize, and also where you're at now. So have there been any sort of learning curves or lessons you've learned along the way? I'm sure there's plenty.
Massive.
I'll let you.
So I'd say that we at the early days we got lots of grant funding, and through the grant funding we got lots of advice and help from people that give that to startups, and that really helped us, didn't it?
Yeah.
The European Enterprise Network, the guys there, helped us get our first grants and really helped us. And then there's loads of help you can get if you know where to look. And we've been really lucky that we've had lots of people sort of direct us to where we can find the help and advice.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as scientists going into business, all that advice early on that was really invaluable. And I think the grant success, you know, we got a European Union grant. That really accelerated the business because we went from 3 people to 8 people in the space of about 3 months, which I think was, you know, it brought the technical team together. I think that some of the lessons we've learned, and maybe it's for any startup, is keeping focus on where we want to get to. And throughout, we've probably been a bit disfocused sometimes.
Yeah, I think the problem is that pH is so relevant to so many industries that it's very... And a calibration-free pH is a kind of step change. So we've had lots of interest from lots of different areas. So trying to stay focused on oceans now and moving on to aquaculture is a bit of a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always one of those things.
I guess, there's people come to you and then you can open a little tangent, we could do this, and, we could be monitoring this over here, and staying focused is obviously...
Yeah, I think that's the scientific mind against the business mind is the...
definitely.
That's interesting, but that's why we've got directors.
That's true.
So they certainly help us keep on the focus now. And we were really lucky, actually. We got a really good board behind us now, so they're helping sort of on the business side and negotiating deals. I think that they've been really useful as well. So getting a strong board is important. So,
That's great. I think it's something because we obviously have a science background and we came into this quite businessy type job, and that was something we struggled to adjust with at the start.
It was
the difference.
A big change for me. So I came from 2 years working abroad, whereas Phoebe came straight from university, but still from both sides we weren't kind of connected to the business world by any means. So it was certainly a bit of a not wake up call, but a culture shock.
Yeah.
Culture shock. That's the word.
was it the right decision? That's the question.
It's been good. It's been
I
fun.
think it's been brilliant. Yeah.
We learnt loads.
Because we're still connected to the science world, and we're still involving ourselves in projects that, suddenly, for example, like underwater acoustics, I've always heard about it, but kind of never thought I'd ever be connected into that field in any way, because I thought, it's for the super intelligent people that know what they're doing, and didn't do perfectly at university, so I thought, oh, I'd never get there. But now, obviously, a lot of our work is involved with that, and although we're not out on the boats collecting all this data, we're still involved in helping people do that, and being able to see this data come back and help them filter through it and analyse it, which is really, really interesting.
And sometimes we get to go out and do some of the data and collection analysis, and that's the bit that excites me.
Yeah, absolutely. I love being in the field as much as possible.
Yeah.
But it is good to hear there's lots of funding for startup businesses and people trying to get into the business side of things. So.
That's good. I think that's the advantage of the ocean side as well, is you're working with quite techie people that want to share data, want to improve the products, and that's certainly one of the reasons. I know we went in through Wendy Schmidt, X Prize, but developing our first product for oceans is really quite beneficial, because you do get people wanting to adopt the technology, try it, give you feedback, understanding where you can improve it, and I think that's really benefited us, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Compared to the sort of more commoditised market. So where you sort of sensor. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, aside from your wonderful pH sensors, of course, has there been a particular advancement in marine science technology that you found really interesting or that's excited you in the last few years or so?
Yeah, for me, I think probably the underwater vehicles and seeing all the kind of UVs out there.
Mm-hmm.
Every show we go to every year, there's more companies making neat vehicles, and we bought one actually, didn't we, to do trials of our sensor. And it's such good fun.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I think that's for me.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree with that. I think, and the vehicle's a good tool. So building sensors you can put on the vehicle, which is sort of why we're miniaturising our sensor now. It's going to be really good for the business. But yeah, no, definitely for monitoring, profiling. That's where it's got to be. These sort of swarm vehicles, I think, is a good way to go.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's more of the direction we've taken as a company recently. Obviously, we started out in offshore energy, hydrographic or oceanographic monitoring, and then brought on more ecological monitoring side of things with the aquaculture and the fish tracking, and now we've branched out more into autonomy robotics. Obviously, you're probably aware we're partnering with Phoebe, who's based over in France, and I was with them last week. Was it last? No,
yeah,
it was last week. I've got no sense of time. I was over with them last week having a good time chucking the AUV in the water, and it's so nice to see, like I know certainly when I was first involved in marine biology years ago, you saw the huge big yellow subs from NOC, and you thought, well, that's that's what goes underwater, and that's the size they have to be autonomous. And now it's something you can just chuck in your backpack almost. It's incredible how far the technology's moved on.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that.
It's like seeing Ocean Business, all the little robots in the water, weren't they? You could just go and watch them all driving around. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah. They're all just a little variation on the theme, aren't they?
Yeah.
Colour or different. Yeah.
And there was people that have been going to Ocean Business for years. I mean, it was our first one, but for folks that have been going for years are saying there used to just be like one or two in the stands, but now almost every other stand is some kind of little yellow robot or something.
It's like robot wars out in the bay. They're like trying to bump into each other.
We just need a pH sensor on everyone, and we'll be That's the aim.
So you mentioned that you've developed a smaller sensor to be integrated onto vehicles and stuff. What other industries are you planning to expand into, or that sort of market? Or?
So definitely, obviously, aquaculture is a low-hanging fruit. So we're going to go into that. With the new sensor, which will be able to do the full salinity range, we can then do freshwater and full saltwater aquaculture. So yeah, I think that's certainly where we're going next, and we're getting a lot of contacts. Obviously, you guys are working in the aquaculture area, so it's all going to work well there. Following on from that, we can see environmental water monitoring. I think that would be interesting because, again, we can work in low salinity. A lot of pH sensors fail in those environments. Yeah. So the water industry, water utilities is where we're looking at next. And then hydroponics. Who knows?
Cow stomachs, hydroponics.
Yeah. Cow stomachs.
Yeah, so we've got a project on making a pH sensor for a bolus, which goes inside the cow's stomach to measure the pH of the rumen. So that can be correlated to their methane production and also the milk production in a dairy cow. So, yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Very different use case. But speaking of use cases, you mentioned at the start that monitoring oceans and ocean acidification and warming, obviously it's becoming something a lot more alarming and pressing issue that we need to monitor. Is that where the core ideal of measuring pH has kind of sprouted out for you, or is there something that kind of clicked and you thought, I need to make pH sensors?
It's certainly one of them. The X-Files was focused around monitoring oceans for ocean acidification.
Mm-hmm.
But just generally profiling the ocean, looking around wastewater outlets.
Mm-hmm.
I think pH is a key variable for looking at that.
Mm.
Subsea vents as well. CO2 release, oil and gas, CO2 release again. I think all of that side of it, especially if you're looking at CO2 sequestration these days. So you want to monitor the reservoirs where they're injecting the CO2. pH is a great proxy for knowing where there's a CO2 leak, it acidifies.
Yeah.
So those sort of cases as well. And again, that goes towards profiling with the vehicles, putting it on board them. Whether we'll always be accurate enough to do high-level ocean acidification with the technology, we're not as good as a colorimetric system, we know that. Is one, it's a challenge. But certainly the profiling applications that go through water columns, that's where I see us now, I would say.
Brilliant. So something that sparked that question for me was that you may have seen in the news that there was a huge reef has been discovered off the coast of Tahiti, and it's completely pristine. And certainly these days, that's something that's quite hard to find. Most reefs these days, obviously with the El Nino and ocean acidification, they've become really damaged. So it seems like now more than ever, monitoring the oceans, especially areas like coral reefs, which are really susceptible to oceanographic change, is become a real pressing issue and something that needs to be looked more into. So it's great that folk like yourselves are really pushing into that market to do exactly that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had some interest, didn't we, about coral reef?
Yeah, we've had a few calls with people that are studying coral reefs and trying to maintain them, that they're really interested in deploying our sensors because it can be long term without having to calibrate. So yeah, it's an area that is interesting to us for sure.
Excellent.
It's funny you say that because I did my dissertation on coral reefs and looking at how they've changed over time, and I was trying to sort of find a timeline of pH data that's dated like back, and there's just chunks of it here and there. There was never like a long-term data set that you could actually look at and compare that with. So it is great that there's going to be some options for that.
It's almost like they had availability to a sensor, or a person was available to go and monitor it, and then that was it for some period of time.
Yeah, and I think it was like different groups had done a bit here and a bit there, but there was not like a long-term thing. And I think as well that's communication in the industry, isn't it? That let's have that bit and then we can.
Yeah.
But
as you rightly mentioned, having that ability to just leave a sensor autonomously for a long period of time without having to worry about calibrating it is going to be quite critical in the years to come.
Yeah, it's a holy grail.
Yeah.
I want to get to.
so do you still get excited about connecting directly with the freshwater and the marine sort of end users, and how often do you get in the field testing your sensor? And
Yeah, no, I'd say definitely. It's one of the highlights, isn't it?
Totally.
So we go out to test in the local river now. We've got our freshwater sensor. By just us, we go out and we make sure we've got a sensor monitoring most of the time, don't we?
Yep.
Which is nice. Now the weather's a bit nicer as well. It's lovely to get out. But yeah, everyone that's using the sensor, it's really nice to go there and visit, see the sensor in action. If not in person, then over Zoom or
that's true. It's a shame it's over Zoom these days. I'll say it's something we miss because now we've got some commercial guys on the company. We don't do so much face-to-face interaction with the end customers, do we? Because, and that's something I really enjoy when we're sort of setting up the company, doing the business case, doing the use case for sort of the grant funding. That initial interaction where you're discussing about how they're going to use the sensor and what they want, and learning what their needs are. I really enjoyed that. It's probably something we're starting to miss a bit when we've got more some commercial guys that do that for us. But certainly getting out in the field, even playing in the lab is something can't beat it.
Completely agree. Has there been a particular application or customer that's used the sensor in a certain way that's been particularly interesting or novel that you've really enjoyed seeing that happen, or that you're particularly proud of? Or
other than the cow stomach, because
that's definitely novel. The cow stomach. I would say because we're sort of sending out our first sensors. Over the last year we sort of sent out the first 30 odd sensors. Every application is interesting to us because it's just so sort of new. I mean, obviously we've done some of the trials ourselves, but just It's finding out where the sensors are being placed. We've got a sensor in a river in Chile. We've got sensors down in Antarctica in the Southern Ocean. Sensors in RAS facilities in Norway, and they're all really interesting because they're also different to what we're used to.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I think every one that I enjoy, I would say, just because it's just interesting to see the data, interesting to see how the sensors are performing. It's a learning curve which we can put into the small sensor which we're developing. So all that feedback is great, and
especially in such like different environments. I mean, you've got the Southern Ocean, and then you've got in the river in Chile. Like, that's amazing. They're completely different.
Diverse kind of field of use. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
When we do travel again, we can choose which ones we're going to visit.
Is that
true? Yeah, all these contacts around the world. Can I come see you for a week? Sure.
Need some marketing material.
Absolutely.
We'll come to that bit.
It's true.
So we're going to take a little bit of a different turn. We'll step away from the more technical, sciencey questions. You're relaxed now, guys. I hear, Kay, you're a big fan of baking. You're a big fan of, what is it, Bake Off? I don't know Bake Off. I've not watched it. Sorry.
Great British Bake Off.
But what is it about the baking that you love? And have you tried to bake anything or?
Yeah, I'm always baking actually. I always bring cakes into the lab, don't we?
I was going to ask that actually, if you were sharing your wares. But...
Yeah, we do often have cake.
We do often have cake. Not always cooked by Kay, honestly. But Kay's always the best.
I don't think we've ever had one that you've made.
No. Shop walk.
Do you take turns to bring in cakes to the office or to the lab, or?
No, it's random.
Not really. It's quite random, but there's always cake or biscuits. It always works. It works out fine.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's a bit of
seaweed.
Yeah.
They wouldn't go down well.
They didn't go down well.
But yeah, I love the Bake Off because it's a journey, isn't it? And it can go either way. You don't know which way it's going to go. They start baking, they can spend 3 hours, and who knows what it's going to end up with. He said it's good, it's entertaining.
I guess it's like chemistry at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who
knows what's going to happen.
Nice bit of marketing there. If you censored kind of on top of your cake, just making sure that
There you
everything's...
go.
We did
We should
an
keep the
ocean
big
cake.
sensors so we get bigger cake.
We did something similar to that actually, didn't we?
We did, yeah. We had obviously during lockdown we were keeping ourselves entertained, and we had a bake-off competition one month, and everyone brought to the table, excuse the pun, some various different things. What did you make a porpoise or an orca?
I made a jellyfish with a fish tag on it.
Okay.
But there was sort of like melting data well buoys that you poured the chocolate sauce on and like.
Oh yeah, who did that one? That was that Nick, yeah. Because I made it.
Pictures.
Yeah.
I made a data well boy, but it was just a.
Oh, yours didn't melt. Yours was rubbish.
Yeah, but Martin made some sourdough bread out of the logo and a fish.
Yeah, that was amazing.
That was nice. Someone made was it? Antia made a cake out of an orca or
something,
porpoise or something. But
people got creative. We were obviously really bored.
Yeah. But no, it's nice to just keep the brain ticking over during lockdown. Third one.
Yeah. Kay did one for Ocean's Day, World Ocean Day, didn't you?
Yeah.
Oh, what was that?
I don't know. I think it was just a Victoria sponge, but it had some kind of fancy blue icing on it.
Excellent.
Ocean scene, it's good.
Very
Tasty.
Brilliant. Nathan, your random question. So I touched on F1 before. I know you're a keen fan.
Yeah.
As someone that also follows the sport, I'm interested to know your thoughts on the season that's just happened, and what do you reckon will happen this year? Do you think Sir Lewis will return, or is that?
I'm sure he'll return. I'm a McLaren fan, so I was just quite pleased to see us. I was quite pleased to see us going back up the grid.
Absolutely.
After a few years in despair.
Go Lando.
So we're going on the right way. So for McLaren, I say my hopes for next year are good.
I share those feelings.
So, as for the outcome of last season, I mean, it is what it is in the end.
It is what it is.
Nothing can be done about it.
Yeah.
It was a good season, and it's good to see it after so many years of dominance by Mercedes.
Definitely,
It's good to see a bit of competition again.
That's
so long may that continue, I would say.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Phoebe and Kay are right on board.
Zoned out. Still thinking about cake.
Exactly.
So one of our questions we ask every week, we always ask our guests, is got 3 items that you can bring with you if you're stranded on a desert island. what would they be? Go on, Kay.
Yours will be electrochemically based, won't it?
pH sensor, because you're on an island, it's a great testing location.
No, mine would be my Kindle, I think.
Oh,
Okay, yeah, it's a good shout.
how would you charge it?
Solar.
I like your
There
thinking.
Thanks. Coffee machine.
Oh, good shout.
Do I have to worry about plugging that in, or is it
Let's assume that there's a rogue buffalo that has a plug on the back of it.
perfect? Yep, coffee machine. And probably my favourite trainers.
Fair play. I was going to say a sort of very bright and colourful pair that you were rocking today.
Probably should say my husband and kids, shouldn't I? But
Let's go purely objective. We'll take family and friends out of it.
Oh, okay. Me?
pretentious that.
I need chemicals, so, you know. That's all. Like, my cat. I'll take my cat with me, she'll be fun. Tea machine, if you can get such a thing.
Fair enough.
Kettle. You need the tea bags and your milk. You need a fridge. So I'm already getting way above my 3 items because we drink a lot of tea at work, and I miss that. And the third one, why not? I'm going to say pH sensor.
Oh no!
No, I'll take my laptop. It's good to stay connected.
Fair enough. Has yours changed from last time?
Yeah,
as well?
what are yours?
I think I can't remember. It's like cheese, chocolate,
And cat, I
wine,
thought.
or my cat, or one of something. Yeah,
Something along those lines.
hasn't changed.
Cheese is a good one.
Yeah, but it would melt, wouldn't it? But then melted cheese is just as good. So
Yeah, cheese is a good one.
What
Depends
about
on the
yours,
cheese.
Nathan?
I can never remember what I say because yours is quite nice and concise. I think something like a water bottle or something because I drink a lot of water, which is really boring. Like end the supply of beer, no water.
Desalination
Can't
kit.
remember. Yeah, could do actually. Yeah, water purification. I think some kind of music and. I don't know. I never remember the third one. Maybe a fishing rod.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, we-
so practical.
Yeah.
We wouldn't last 5 minutes. Nathan's like caveman.
Perhaps we
2
should all
years.
go together between us.
2 years later, I'm still kind of hugged in the middle of a palm tree, like, get off my land. Last question. If you were in the ocean, what's one animal that you would love to be in the ocean swimming around with, and what's one that you'd really rather not see?
Go on.
Probably, I'd like to swim with the manatee.
Mhm.
They're really cool, aren't they? Not want to see. I've done diving with great white before,
Oh, so jealous.
which was an experience that I wouldn't want to have again. It was a good experience.
Was that in a cage, or were you...
Yeah, in a
Yeah.
cage.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. But I'd probably say, you know those big jellyfish?
Like the
The
Portuguese.
Portuguese
Yeah,
man of war,
yeah.
the box jellyfish, or
Any of them.
just any of the above?
Give me the creeps.
Yeah, the vicious, horrible things.
Yeah.
Oh, I like the way they move.
Well, very
Dancing.
beautiful. I'd
Yeah.
like a nice
Yeah,
bit of
behind
perspex in
glass.
between.
In between,
yeah.
That's true. Me? I like dolphins. I like a dolphin. I think that'd be quite
Can't go
cool.
wrong with a dolphin.
Pretty
can you?
safe. Pretty
Yeah.
safe.
I don't know what they're called. Those deep sea fish that you can pretty much see through. Like, because I don't know what they're called.
That's the
But
one where
they-
they've got the heads where it's
Yeah.
clear and they can look
Yeah,
upwards.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
do look a bit
Oh,
strange.
barrel.
Barrel fish or
Something like that,
Something
and they
like
can
that.
like rotate their eyes.
Yeah,
up in
yeah,
the
Yeah.
air.
something like that would be a bit,
Oh,
yeah,
a
a
bit weird,
bit
aren't they?
freaky.
Some of the deep sea fish and their adaptations are so weird.
Yeah.
Like, you seen a goblin shark, and they like dislocate their jaw and
Yes.
throw it out to eat that.
Oh, yeah. See, things like
Yeah,
that
I
are
love
a bit
that.
freaky.
Cast my mind back to a video where there was an ROV deep down, like several thousand meters, and they came across, I think it was some kind of eel or something that could like open its mouth huge, and it was just inflated. And the group of scientists that were controlling were just like giggling behind. They couldn't control themselves because it just looked so stupid.
It's a gulper eel.
Sorry?
That's a gulper eel.
Yeah,
I
that's a
think it is.
gulper eel. Yeah,
I love them as well. I think that's cool.
they look really
it's
funny. Yeah.
amazing. It's amazing how they've adapted to survive, you know.
That's what you're like when you're eating a Big Mac. Like, you just throw the jaw out and the whole thing.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Guys, that's the end of our podcast, I think.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
everything. But thank you so much for coming on. It's been really interesting. And we've shared a lot of laughs, which is something we tend to.
We're always laughing.
We always laugh, but it's always good to have a nice conversation.
Yeah, it's been great having you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for
No
having us.
Thank you, and
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day going visiting around the south coast.
We will. Yes. It's a holiday.
Sun shining, it's nice.
Yeah, it's great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thanks.